What are we discussing on today's Locked On Diamondbacks podcast? It's crossover time with Locked On Padres to discuss all the awards, MVP to Manager of the Year, and to break down Silver Slugger as well, because I think there was a D-back robbed by San Diego Padres. So we'll break it all down on today's Locked On Diamondbacks, Locked On Padres crossover.
You are Locked On Padres, your daily San Diego Padres podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
But now, without further ado, let's get into the crossover with Locked On Padres host Javier Reyes as we break down all of the awards. Javi, how are you today, sir?
Man, I am most certainly thriving and vibing, sir. Really, really excited to talk about all this stuff. It's been a while since we've done a crossover. I believe the last time we did one was like 2 weeks before the regular season ended, whenever the Padres and D-backs played. And basically it got pretty bad for both of us, let's be honest. Ever since then, just tragedy struck baseball, and we were just hit with, dare I say, a Great Depression period when it came to covering baseball. It was really, really rough. The bad guys won, but that happens sometimes. You pick it up and you keep going forward, which is why we're going to be talking about a bunch of different topics on these episodes, man. And I'm really excited because I know that people tend to like our crossovers, and we do them every offseason, especially so.
Yeah, I remember the last time we did it, it was like, oh, is one of our teams like gonna take like the top spot, potentially still in division? Is one of our teams gonna be like on the outside looking in on the postseason? Like, we're like, woo, one of our teams might be mad come like, whoever the day was for the playoffs. And unfortunately, it was my team that was sad. And then I was all in on the Padres bandwagon. I actually picked you guys to go to the
Everyone was, and that's what made me nervous.
I was there. I was like, let's ride it, San Diego. And
I got so much crap online for picking the Padres to lose that game 5. And then a bunch of people came running back to the comments being like, begrudgingly, he was right. You know what I mean? And then Dodger fans, of course, have been infesting my mentions for like a month now. It's been basically a month now. So that's been rough. But again, man, we're back and we've got each other, and that's all we need.
Yeah, and sadly, we're still going to have a bunch of Dodgers talk on today's podcast and tomorrow's podcast, because going through the awards, going through free agency, there's a lot of Dodgers discussion. And we're going to start here with the MVP in the National League as we give our picks, Javi, because, I mean, the MVP might be kind of easy. It might be better to have a conversation about who we think is more deserving for second place, because I think we all think Shohei Ohtani is going to take home another MVP award, as he should. I mean, he had a 50-50 season, almost had like a 60-60 season. Like, it was an insane year for Ohtani. But at one point, prior to Ketel Marte's injury, if you went on FanDuel, he was running away with like runner-up second place in MVP odds. And then he gets hurt. And then Lindor, as he gets hurt, goes on this insane tear for the rest of the year. And I think he has really made it neck and neck. I think the numbers still lean toward Marte, but I feel like the narrative potentially leans toward Lindor. So I think we both agree Ohtani's the MVP. But discussing runner-up, who would you actually go? Your Puerto Rican flavor, Francisco Lindor, or the rival, Ketel Marte?
I'm going with Lindor. There's a couple reasons for that. One, the defense is still one of the best defensive players in baseball. And I also think that you saw, there was a bunch of stats that came out where it was like, basically when Lindor had a subpar game, the Mets lost. When he didn't, they won. And I think that illustrated just how much he was really, really the driving force behind that team. Had more wins above replacement, for one thing. Ketel Marte, a better hitter. That's never been necessarily Lindor's greatest strength. And he was still good this year. And actually a little bit unlucky in certain ways. His weighted on base was 382, or expected weighted on base was 382 compared to his 363 standing. But he was, I don't know. I just think he had more moments. I think that he won more games for them. But I will say, if Ketel Marte doesn't get hurt, I do think that he maybe, I mean, Francisco Lindor, for example, he finished with 7.8 wins above replacement. I think Ketel Marte might get there, right? He finished with 6.3. I think maybe he gets there if he doesn't get hurt. It's hard to say, but with the way that dude was playing, I think that part of it is like, look, and sometimes it should be this way, is just Lindor carried his team to the playoffs, and that matters. And by the way, showed up for them also. So you can't, none of the people who, I hate when people do the thing where, depending on how someone performs in the playoffs, they use it to justify. It's like the survivor's bias. like of whatever they thought before. It's like, well, it's a regular season award, guys. But even if you are one of those people, hit the grand slam to put them ahead, right? They beat the whoever it was, the Phillies, right? Had some big hits in the Brewers series as well. So really, really great run. And I think Lindor stopped being underrated this year. I think there was a stretch of people not realizing, especially New York fans, how good he was. And that every single year he's always shown up. He's always healthy. And I think that's the guy. It's just a better two-way player. But Ketel Marte, man, I think he's now the Lindor. I think he's the underrated, hilariously enough. So I guess that's how
it's a fantastic take by you. I really respect Javi's opinion, as everyone knows. But for me, I just feel like the argument for Ketel Marte is just so much easier. He played like 20 less games, and outside of WAR, if you just look at traditional numbers, they're just better straight up across the board.
So if you just take out defense,
defensively, Marte was runner-up at his position for Gold Glove. So defensively, if you go on FanGraphs, he's top 3 in like every defensive metric at second base. He finished runner-up to Bryce Terang. I could make the argument maybe if he doesn't get hurt, maybe he wins the Gold Glove. So if he's already a finalist at his position and then across the board, offensively better statistically in less games. And I know we're going to say Lindor carried his team to the postseason. Marte did not. I mean, listen, Marte can't pitch. The D-backs were the best offense in baseball, the number one scoring team. What more can Marte do for his team but be better than Lindor across the board and have the best offensive team? So Lindor, he might get second. It's going to be a toss-up between both of them. Of course, locked on D-backs guy, going to go with Ketel Marte there. But the Cy Young, I think maybe surprises some people, maybe not, with seeing rookie Paul Skenes in the top 3. Yeah. Chris Sale back after just being who knows where the last few years, mostly on the injured list with the Boston Red Sox. And then Zach Wheeler, a guy who's kind of been like the favorite to win it like the last 3 years, but is this finally going to be the season? I think this one's a little bit more open than the NL MVP, but who do you have as the Cy Young Award winner, Javi?
It's Chris Sale, man. It's Chris Sale. Basically every advanced metric, if you want to go to expected ERA, he's right there. If you want to go by FIP, his FIP was 2.09. Field independent pitching, it's a good stat for just if you have a bad defense or whatnot. 2.09. Do you know what the second closest FIP was? 2.95. Logan Webb of the San Francisco Giants. So it's that you add the strikeouts, right? Obviously, he was a strikeout artist more than your Logan Webb's. Don't get me wrong. There were like, what's his face? Zach Wheeler and certainly Paul Skenes were great strikeout artists, but a little bit more for Sale. And then lastly, also a little bit of a narrative thing. Changing over. People love it when stars recapture the stardom. I don't know if Chris Sale is going to do this next year. Something tells me maybe it's a little bit of a last hurrah. And also, by the way, they really needed him with the Spencer Strider injury happening, right? Like they really, really needed someone to step up, and he did. Even if the rest of the Braves as a whole did that, they really needed him. And the fact that you got that out of him at this age, I think it's Chris Sale's hand down. And it's unfortunate because I think Zach Wheeler has been almost like due for a Cy Young, but he just every time he's about to win, someone has like a historically great season or something like that. And like Blake Snell last year, great example. Blake Snell just becomes unhittable for 4 months, like gives up like 3 runs or whatever it is in 4 months. But Zach Wheeler was still just as good, and dare I say, a better overall pitcher than Blake Snell. But that's just, again, it's per year, not overall who you would rather have. I think that's a mistake sometimes people make when they're voting.
Yeah, no disagreement here. I guess the question is, how surprised are people that Chris Sale still had this much in the tank? Because when he was acquired by the Braves, the conversation was, oh, we just got to keep him in bubble wrap until the postseason. He's going to be like a number 4, number 5 starter, and then we'll unleash him in the playoffs. And then it's like, no, he actually had to be your workhorse from day one. And he lived up to being the workhorse. 29 starts, led the league in ERA and strikeouts, like you said, elite. And then Paul Skenes, rookie, probably going to finish. I mean, he's a finalist, so he is going to finish second or third in voting here. And insane to see for a guy who didn't even make a full season, but in the starts he did pitch, I mean, maybe already the best pitcher in baseball. So everyone gets your bets in now, because the odds for him to win the Cy Young next year are not going to be pretty. Javi and I will continue our awards coming up in segment number 2 as we go through the Rookie of the Year and Manager of the Year in segment number 2. But hey, I first need to talk to our listeners because if you guys want to place a little wager down on who you think is going to take home the MVP award, then the best place to do that, of course, is going to be FanDuel because get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. My favorite thing to do on FanDuel is the same game parlay. Give me, if you're an Arizona Cardinals fan, give me that Kyler Murray anytime touchdown. Give me Marvin Harrison anytime touchdown, and give me the Cardinals money line. If you did that 3-leg this past weekend, it would have brought a big smile to your face because it brought a big smile to mine. So please go visit FanDuel. You get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more. FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, back here in the Locked On Diamondbacks, the Locked On Padres crossover, and we are now going to move to Rookie of the Year. We both think Ohtani is winning MVP. We both got Chris Sale for Cy Young, but Rookie of the Year, this gets a little bit more interesting. I feel like there's a heavy favorite, but there is a guy from your team, the San Diego Padres, who is actually, we're going to be talking about him a lot on this podcast and tomorrow's podcast because he's actually littered around these awards and some of this free agency, maybe not free agent discussion, but all this award discussion. So Rookie of the Year, Paul Skenes. We got Jackson Merrill of the Padres, and we got Jackson Chirios, a loaded NL Cy Young Award field. Not Cy Young Award, Rookie of the Year field. Who do you have, Javi?
For Rookie of the Year. So here's the thing. This is what my folks, I know that they're clicking on this video for this. This is really tight for a number of reasons. First of all, Jackson Merrill, if you want to just go by the stats, right? This is a guy who hit for a lot of power. He was able to steal bases and to do all that stuff. And he was on a team that actually mattered, right? And believe it or not, I like taking that into account with my awards. I know that baseball voting for some reason likes to treat everything in a vacuum as if a player who is hitting on a 50-win team, that those at-bats mattered just as much as someone who's hitting on a 85, 80 to 90 win team trying to make the playoffs. Fine, whatever. I'm referring to the Juan Soto year, basically. But even still, I think that Jackson Merrill had like really incredible stats: 292, 326, 500 slash line as a 21-year-old, 130 WRC plus, 5.3 wins above replacement. There are two things that I think, aside from those numbers that I just gave you, that add onto the case for Jackson Merrill. Number one, it is the fact that, like I just said, his at-bats mattered. This is a guy who hit 6 home runs in the 8th inning or later. Talked about this on my episode yesterday. Everyone could check out my player review for Jackson Merrill's 2024 season. He was super, super clutch. He had one of the highest WRC pluses in the entire league in high leverage situations and was instrumental to the Padres making that crazy August run, right? When the Diamondbacks were really winning a lot of games too around the same time. That's what helped. Jackson Merrill was just going absolutely nuts. And then number two, this guy not only played great defense, he played defense at a position he had never played before in his life. That has to matter at 21 years old for you to go up. You're expecting to be a shortstop, and all of a sudden you have to be the center fielder. And it's not like they have a lot of options. So they were counting on him, not just to be, a player who can field, and just be meh and be fine, but to be a quality contributor for this team, a team that really needs young, controllable players, given the amount of contracts that they've given out. And he succeeded. He even showed up in the postseason bunch. Again, I know, regular season award, but he even had some amazing moments in the postseason. Action Jackson Al-Gaib, whatever you want to call him. Ooh. I think that's the case to make for him. However, I will say, I just wish, I get it. I know that, like, Millard, I get it. I know that this isn't good for engagement. You know what I mean? I know that, like, it's better to be like, you know what? You're an idiot for thinking Joel Embiid should win over Nikola Jokic, right? Or vice versa. Paul Skenes wasn't just good. He was historically good. And that needs to be brought up. Even if you just look up on MLB.com, 22-year-old became the first rookie pitcher to record at least 170 strikeouts and a sub-2 ERA since earned runs became official in 1913. So I understand that Jackson Merrill had an unbelievable year, and I still don't mind if people vote for him. I think that it's actually great if people vote for him. I like that we can have a dialogue for these awards, but Skenes had historic numbers. And then again, though, one last thing in favor of Merrill is he's a position player. You don't impact the game as much as your pitcher, right? So it's tight though, man, because Manny was great, but I think Skenes takes this. I think that the celebrity factor makes him more sexy. He's got the famous girlfriend.
Mm-hmm.
He's on all the TV shows. He's on College Game Day. I just think he has a little bit more of the oomph, and people are going to want to award that. And I genuinely have no problem with that. I think it's totally deserved.
And he's got the mustache, which is just, hey, it's in right now.
I should have shaved before recording. Dang it.
Yeah, should hit the stash. Yeah. And like you said, it's really a conversation of this undeniable superstar, but on like a really crappy, mediocre team versus like this really good all-star level player who can affect games more on a day-to-day basis, who was on a team that mattered, where he had so many big clutch moments in the second half down the stretch of the season. How do you weigh that versus someone that probably was better day-to-day, but he was doing it in an environment that was like not conducive to winning? There was no pressure. There was no expectation. So how does that affect your game day to day versus someone where every at bat matters? Padres are fighting for playoff positioning and all that. So I wonder how voters are going to view those two side by side. But also Jackson Chirios, he also has a case because, I mean, there's no Manny Machado. There's no Fernando Tatis in his lineup over there, right? So it was a lot of it. I mean, Willie Adames is very good, but it was a lot on Jackson Chirios' plate this past season. So he's definitely going to get some love as well. Look at the manager of the year again, Javi. You guys, the Padres, we have a big discussion about you guys today because manager of the year, we got, of course, Mike Shildt of the San Diego Padres. We got Carlos Mendoza of the Mets, and we got Pat Murphy of the Brewers. And I will say, I know the D-backs missed the postseason, but even prior to it, Torey Lovullo was not getting the buzz for manager of the year. He was not going to finish as a finalist. I thought he deserved just a little bit more buzz, but this is not a conversation about a manager who didn't get his team to the postseason. Do you think your manager is deserving of this award?
Absolutely. But man, you know what's funny is manager of the year is basically, it feels like this also is the same for coach of the year and at the NFL too. I feel like this award usually just comes down to who outperformed expectations, right?
Pretty much.
That's usually what it is. Exactly. That's usually what it is. And while I have some issues with that because, you know, sports in general, standings tend to vacillate back and forth, and that's just how it goes. Sometimes you're not going to be historically bad in the clutch 2 years in a row. This is tough, man, because on the one hand, you see the Mets and you're like, but they have the highest payroll in baseball. Yeah, but a lot of it they traded away because they kind of had to rebuild. A lot of people thought this was going to be a little bit of a rebuilding year for the Mets.
Yeah.
And they ended up being great. They had really good vibes. They had a great clubhouse. Jeff Passan did a great piece.
Scherzer thought it was a rebuild year. He said that in like some quote, right?
Yeah, he said peace. You know what I mean? He's like, one out. And in fairness, won a World Series with the Rangers, so not a bad decision by him. But I think that then you go for Mendoza, then you go to Shildt, who Padres, like I just said, historically bad in the clutch last season. You get all these reports about bad clubhouse vibes, some conflicting reports about the clubhouse vibes. The manager's under fire. Bob Melvin gets sent to his rival, or the Padres' rival. Like, that's how crazy it was. And then they not only do well, but they have easily the best season since I've been hosting this podcast, and easily the best season since Preller has been the GM. And I understand that they didn't make the NLCS this time, but they were a better team overall than they were the year that they made the NLCS. I think no one would dispute that. So Shildt absolutely has standing. I love the way he stands up for his guys, right? Love that. And also was fired from the Cardinals for no reason. The Cardinals, guess what, guys? Not a good organization anymore. No. They decided that they're going to suck now. So if we want to just be petty and hate the Cardinals for how boring they often are, there you go. But then the last one, Pat Murphy. You want to talk about expectations, man? Pat Murphy is the one. Not only did they lose Corbin Burns, they also lose Christian Yelich.
Yeah.
Like in this season, and he was having a very good year. So with a lot of lackluster players, and don't get me wrong, like they did what they always do in the playoffs. Shout out Peter Bukowski of Locked On Today and Locked On Packers. I told you, bro. I told you they weren't going to win. Historically speaking, when you don't spend enough, when you're 25th in payroll, you're not going anywhere. What happens? They get embarrassed, and Devin Williams blows the playoffs for the second year in a row. For those who don't remember, the first one, he didn't pitch, but he still blew it because he punched his hand. You remember that storyline? And he
I
broke his
forgot
hand so he couldn't pitch. Yeah, if I'm a Brewers fan, I'm livid. But on top of that, the manager literally left to your division rival to get a payday.
Who's
and you
considered like the
guys were
best in
better.
baseball. They're like, Craig Counsell's the best manager
He's
in
the
baseball.
best man. And for you to win all those games with all those things, and your other manager is literally a rival, and you still kick their butts. I hate the Brewers. Everybody knows I hate the Brewers. I feel like they're just kind of the spoil of baseball. But I think it's Pat Murphy, man. What about you?
Yeah, I think we're the same on this because I was months saying, yeah, Brewers are frauds, guys. I don't care about top 5 ERA. I don't care about what they're doing offensively and how they're winning games. Like, we know this team's going to lose in the wild card round. We were both completely correct on that. But like you said, yeah, I agree with every point you just made. Craig Counsell was considered one of the best, if not the best manager in the NL. It was like, how are we going to replace him? This Brewers team, are they finally starting this rebuild? Are they finally starting to move away from, when they had the Freddie, Woodruff, Corbin Burns big three? Like, is this finally starting to be a reset? They moved off Hader a couple years ago. Like, the Brewers kept making moves the last few years that signified like they might be moving in a direction of trying to reset a little bit, but then they keep winning games, keep making it to the postseason. So I have to give it to their manager because I don't know if any of those managers in the National League that got to the postseason had like less talent than what Pat Murphy was dealing with on Milwaukee. So I would give it to him for manager of the year. So that concludes our BBWAA. I don't even know what the acronym is.
Baseball Writers Association of America, man. Come on now.
Yeah. BBWWCQR2TT. Yep. And
soon to be a baseball stat, probably. Someone's going to come up with that as being a stat. There you go.
It probably is. I don't even want to know the formula for that one because they're probably different on every website. But yeah, so those are our awards. We, of course, gave MVP to Ohtani, the Cy Young to Chris Hale, Rookie of the Year. You going? I forget, Paul Skenes or Jackson Merrill on that, Bobby?
Hopefully nobody got this far. I'll go Skenes.
I'm going to go Skenes. And then, of course, Manager of the Year. Sounds like we're both going Pat
Actually,
Murphy.
No, I'm going with Merrill. Screw all everybody. No, let's do it. Yeah, let's
go Homer. Yeah. We love Homer.
Yeah.
I'm going Marte runner-up, and no one even cares about that debate but me, and that's it. So now let's talk about the Silver Slugger, but we can't talk about it yet because we first got a quick message to discuss first. And that message is from Select Quote because the World Series, Super Bowl, the Olympics, the world's top athletes get to play in these top-level sporting events thanks to one thing, teamwork. And teamwork can also protect your financial legacy and your family's future. Select Quote's licensed insurance agents are the perfect teammates when shopping for customized, affordable life insurance. They can find you the right policy to keep your financial legacy safely in your family's end zone. Other life insurance brokers offer impersonal, one-size-fits-all policies that may cost you more and cover you less, while Select Quote's licensed insurance agents work for you to tailor a life insurance policy for your individual needs in as little as 15 minutes. Head to selectquote.com and a licensed insurance agent will call you right away with the right policy for your life and your budget. Select Quote, they shop, you save. Get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/lockedon. Go to selectquote.com/lockedon today to get started. That's selectquote.com/lockedon. All right. Back here on the Locked On Diamondbacks, Locked On Padres crossover. Let's run through the Silver Sluggers, Javi. I'm just going to go through each one by one, and you tell me if you have a problem with any of the names listed here. At first base, we got Bryce Harper taking it home. Any issue there? Christian Walker, I think, might have had a chance, but I think missing the games and getting hurt took him out the running.
Yeah, I think so. And look, freaking Christian Walker is so underrated. He's going to get a big payday, I think, this offseason, but not his best season, I don't think. I think he had a little bit better a couple of years ago, but even so, I mean, it's Bryce Harper. Like, it's fine. You know what I'm saying? Totally fine. Although Freddie, man, Freddie, I forgot about Freddie being the other nominee, by the way.
Freddie had a fantastic season.
I think didn't he miss like a bunch of games? Is that what it was?
Yeah, he dealt with some like personal stuff too throughout the season.
Yeah, well, it's close, but yeah, I'm fine with Harper. Let's do it.
It's fine. It's a toss up. They're both studs. I don't think anyone's gonna cry at either one. Second base, they got this one right. We know Ketel Marte, and to be honest, when you actually go through the field of second base, like there was actually no one else that even.
Yeah, it's really funny.
Yeah, it was actually a very weak year for second base in the National League. It was Marte. I don't even know well, to be honest. So yeah, he takes home that one.
Luis Garcia Jr. and Jonathan India being the other nominees.
Yeah.
You'll take that. Yeah.
That was a wrap. I was like, Jonathan India? I was like, okay. Francisco Lindor, your guy. Like when we're talking about second, third place in MVP voting, like right there, back to back, second base and shortstop. Lindor. Was there even anyone else that was really considered for like really
shortstop was surprisingly weird this year. Like usually it's actually been like a really deep position for the past few years. But in terms of this year, I mean, obviously it's Lindor, but you kind of didn't have a lot. You had like Adames, basically. Adames was pretty good, but he just didn't have the overall batting stuff. He didn't get on base as much. He didn't hit for average as much. Still a very good player, but yeah, and Trey Turner didn't play enough games this year, but he was, kind of okay, but it's not really any debate. I think that you could have argued at one point Trey Turner, but I think that he didn't play enough games and also is a mess defensively now, apparently. But I know that doesn't have anything to do with it. But yeah, it's Lindor, and he mattered. Everybody was watching how many times he came through. So
yeah. Third base, we got your guy Manny Machado, but this is where I'm like, should it really have been Manny Machado? I really want to make an argument for my guy to at least be a finalist, Eugenio Suarez, just because we can go on the blurb on MLB.com. It's like slow start, but Manny Machado heated up in the second half. You know who had the best second half in baseball? Eugenio Suarez, when he was literally Babe Ruth. Now the numbers, I mean, quite literally, they're like identical between Manny and Eugenio. So I'm not going to be that upset. I'm more upset that Eugenio's not even listed as a finalist when he has the same numbers as Manny Machado.
So with him, I think that it was Machado had a slow start, but it was for 2 months while Eugenio was the entire first half, 87 WRC plus of the first half, second half 153. And I think this does count for something a little bit. We knew there was an injury with Machado, and I do think that played into it a little bit. While Suarez, it's like, what's your excuse, Buster? You know what I mean? Like, we don't exactly have one. So I think it's him. Matt Chapman, also very, very good season, parlayed that into a new contract too. But I'm okay with Machado. But third base, a little bit weird this year. Bohm, kind of the reverse. Bohm was the guy who was like almost an MVP candidate in the first half, and then he just, kind of reverted to what I think he is. He is what it is, which is a solid player, but nothing necessarily more.
My take is Matt Chapman got overpaid, but that's a story for another day.
Damn, you're hating.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm overpaid.
Like, overpaid. I'm like, he's 25+ million a year for Matt Chapman at this point of his career. Still
good
very
defense,
good.
Man.
Like,
good defense. Wow. Teams love defense. Elite defense, actually.
I don't know, man. But let's look at the outfield again. Star-studded with the San Diego Padres because we don't know if he's winning Rookie of the Year, but he won Silver Slugger. Jackson Merrill out there in left field. We got, or I guess it just considered the outfield, Teoscar Hernandez, and then also Jurickson
Profar. You keep doing this.
Jurickson. I know I was going to say it wrong looking at you. Jurickson Profar, and then he wins it. So you get two San Diego Padres. Were you surprised to see two Padres take home the Silver Slugger in the outfield?
I will say that that Jackson Merrill, I was wondering if like Mookie would just be in there because they'd be like, it's Mookie Betts, but they decided not to. Mookie Betts didn't play as many games. If you want to just go by wins above replacement, guess who the top three were? Mookie Betts, Jackson Merrill, Jurickson Profar. So I'm totally fine with it. Corbin Carroll, I will say, I think it's the same thing as Suarez, where it's like, you were so bad for the entire first half. It's like, you can't salvage it even if you start to figure it out later. I think he's going to be great though in the future. I think that if you're a D-backs fan, you almost don't care. You're just like, great. At least he's not like he showed signs of life. And Jurickson Profar, I mean, come on, man. Also, let's do the narrative. How many guys can you name that figured it out this late into their career? And it's really legit. And it doesn't look like this is a Cody Bellinger situation from last year. So I'm full support. Julius Randle.
Oh, you like that one?
I did like that. I was thinking baseball, but I like that one. Yeah, that was
I don't
good.
think I even have a baseball one for you. Yeah, the outfield, I mean, honestly, looking at like the finalists, I mean, Jackson Churios was the other guy who is also a rookie in
Second
the
half, and the second half guy too, especially. Yeah.
like kind of a weird year for outfield in the National League as well. Not as
Oh
strong as
yeah.
you would think.
Yeah.
And then looking at catcher, I didn't who won the catcher? Let me pull that one up. Oh, William Contreras of the Brewers. I don't think anyone has a problem with that one. Catcher, actually kind of a loaded field with Will Smith and JT Realmuto, but William Contreras has been fantastic for the Brewers the last couple of years from an offense.
And played the most games, right? 155. Yeah. Like he was a key contributor to, and the Silver Slugger, like just in terms of hitting. Guy was a freaking
he's a true power
animal this year, man. He was like their cleanup hitter a lot of times.
Yeah, he's nasty. He's a true take the catcher away. Like he's a true player.
He's good as just a hitter, not just good as a catcher.
Yeah.
For being a hitter, and I think that means a lot.
And then DH, I don't even think we got to discuss Shohei Ohtani. Hopefully, I want my guy Jock to get some love, but honestly, DH was pretty loaded. Marcell Ozuna, I forgot who was there was like one other DH that was pretty elite this year, but just a loaded position in 2024.
Hey, Jack Peterson, I kind of love this guy, and that his whole career is just being the greatest platoon hitter, like in baseball. Like that's it. Cannot hit. What is it that he can't hit lefties? Cannot do that. But as long as he's got the matchup, I think he had like a 150. He had like obscene numbers this year. Like
he had like 900 OPS.
Player.
Yeah,
he's a good player as long as he's not someone you have to start every day.
And he doesn't want to leave the NL West, it seems like. So maybe he'll go over to like the Rockies next. Maybe your team next, because he hasn't played for either of those two teams yet in the NL West. And then finally, utility. This one, interesting. But of course, Mookie Betts, I don't think anyone was shocked there. I was just more shocked how you came up with the utility, I guess. But Mookie, definitely deserving.
Yeah, utility, other nominees, Luis Arraez, Jake Berger, Brian Reynolds. No to Jake Berger, although I think he had a better season last year. Luis Arraez, no, guys. He was not, and granted, he was dealing with a big injury with his thumb that he got surgery for, so that's part of it. But it's Mookie Betts. Even if he didn't play, right, a lot of games, I think that's the only case you can make. Reynolds not good enough though, and Arraez unfortunately was a little bit banged up, so he couldn't. If it was Arraez from last year, I think you can make an argument that he takes it, but no, it's totally fine with Mookie Betts.
And then they actually gave out some team Silver Sluggers. I think it's only the second time they did that to the Yankees and Dodgers. I will say, I do think the D-backs should have got their offensive team. We were the number one offense. I mean, what more do you need to do? We were the number one in the clutch. I mean, yes, the Dodgers might have more home runs, but I think we could have actually got
that
was a bone.
That
was a bone.
Oh, I'm kind of with you, man. I think I'm kind of with you.
Thank you.
Because and granted, part of it is again because Freddie, Betts, like they had injuries and whatnot, but so like that's part of it. That's part of the award. That's what we're determining. That's tough, man. That's tough, but it's also really hard with the Teoscar and Freddie still played a decent amount, and then the rest of their offense was still good. But like you said, they had the number one, so hard to dispute that.
Yeah, well, Javi, that's it for this edition of today's crossover. Locked on Diamondbacks, Locked on Padres, going through the awards, talking MVP, talking Cy Young, talking Silver Slugger. We're coming back tomorrow. We got another crossover. Hopefully, we'll see if Javi still has energy. We're going to be discussing a little free agency talk. The Roki Sasaki sweepstakes. Is he on the collision course for the Dodgers? Or do the San Diego Padres have something to say about it? So we're going to be talking about that and so much more. Javi, shout out your socials and plug yourself, sir.
Go check me out at Javipedo on Twitter, JAVIIPENO, and then at LO_Padres for just updates on the show. Go check out justbaseball.com, which I write to, and I do another podcast called Baseball versus the World for, and I also work on their newsletter. So check that stuff out and stay healthy and vibing as always.
And you could check me out at CareerThomas24 for the Twitter account, Millard.Thomas23 for the personal Insta, or look up Locked on Diamondbacks both Twitter and Instagram for the podcast handle. Another crossover with Javier Reyes of Locked on Padres going through the awards. And next up, we got free agent talk. Javi, until next time, doses.